So we're assuming that you're going to do the upgrade. Sitting there doing nothing forever is not feasible. Here are some of the most common reasons our clients have cited when making the move to D365. We've discussed the impact of Microsoft support ending, and those organizations who are concerned about that support are generally already have moved or in the process of moving now. But one of the other common drivers we see quite a lot is aging infrastructure and the impending need to invest in additional on-prem hardware and software. So this is when the discussion invariably comes around to the option of moving workloads off-premise, and rather than sink more money into internal infrastructure, organizations are looking at the cloud. So the total cost of ownership models that do exist, they can help you evaluate the difference in cost, and they'll take into account things like not only the purchase price of that on-prem software and servers, but also the ongoing service and maintenance and labor costs. For organizations thinking about security of the system, this is when the conversation moves to implementing systems for high availability and disaster recovery. So that's really important to know. With D365, it comes with a Microsoft commitment for high availability and disaster recovery. Anyone who's ever crunched the numbers of putting in place an on-prem high availability and disaster recovery solution understands that it adds a huge additional cost to your installation. It can easily double or more the infrastructural investment required to keep those systems running securely. So it is of interest, if those things are important to you, that D365 has that covered. If you were going to try and do that without moving to the cloud, I would suggest there's a huge amount of extra cost. Right, the other driver we've seen quite commonly is the desire to modernize systems, the digital transformation conversation, becoming more flexible, agile, and meeting changing market needs. So when you're stuck in that proverbial electronic concrete, it's difficult and it's costly, and it's also risky to make major changes to the system. It's hard to introduce new ISV products and also to re-engineer workloads. And we all know the pace of business change is such that those people who want to be market leaders need to keep those business apps alongside them and moving with them. Those who let their ERP leave it behind then tend to see a whole lot of business users running amok. So downloading point solutions, subscribing to web services, and nothing integrated and not part of the corporate system strategy. So this sort of makes IT a little bit like a job of whack-a-mole, where apps are popping up everywhere, creating security risk, data silos, and fiefdoms within each department too. So don't get me wrong, I'm not advocating that ERP is the right thing for every use case. But when I see and I talk to a lot of existing and prospective customers, it's these side systems getting out of control that has meant the ERP has languished on early versions. So, in the old days, it used to be Access. It has always been Excel. The build-up of things like massive amounts of Excel spreadsheets, which papers over the cuts of not upgrading ERP. So easing the burden of integration, ensuring the business workflows flow unimpeded between the apps. This is all potentially competitive advantage to the customers who are willing to do it. And on that point, I'd say one of the most interesting changes in the mood around Dynamics that I've seen is how many more people are now looking at as more than a transaction processing application. So the term ERP has sort of going away, it's out of favor, and we're now calling it a business applications platform. And after all, this is where a lot of the significant data from the business resides, and then making it easy to feed that data into apps for things like CRM, talent, BI, field service, etc., does make a huge difference for how a business can run. So the bottom line for creating a business case to upgrade doesn't tend to start with this sort of qualitative conversation. Generally, it's about the money. And our recommendation is to build a spreadsheet, have a good idea of the 5 and 10-year TCOs with what you've got now versus where you're going. Show some variance with impacts on costs. So if you started now versus 6 months, 12 months, or 18 months, acknowledging that there are some discounts on offer in one of those terms. You need to know your existing costs, maintenance fees, hardware and labor support, the labor to support that hardware, and your upgrade costs, as well as the new subscription fees. And then use those numbers as the basis for building that business case to upgrade.